and welcome to another Dodgy Speedbuild. And all I can say is thank you so much for all the positivity on my first one. I was quite surprised actually, and it seems that everybody seemed to like the sort of backstory rather than the actual build itself. So I think we're going to do the same with this one. Now, I'm going to start by building the back of this particular flat, just to see if I can get a different, idea of how to build things. Now, a little bit about this flat. This is the flat that I lived in before the one I built last week. Now, the reason it's out of order a little bit is I did try this one initially, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it just went completely wrong. I just could not get the hang of it. So I thought, well, I've done one, let's do another one now. Now, this particular flat was about 10 minutes down the road from the one from last week. And I moved in here in 1993, which is a fair few years ago now. So I am trying to remember how things were in that flat. Now, it was no, it wasn't a second floor, it was a first floor flat in a block of 8 flats, if I remember rightly. And like I said, I moved in 1993. And the first thing I can remember when I first walked in is how tiny the kitchen was. Just about enough room to put one person in. And that is pretty much how it was. It was just a little box just off the living room with a few kitchen bits and bobs in. Now, what I'm doing here is I've just done like a long wall for the living room because I can't sort of assess how big that living room needs to be compared with everything else. So I've just built a long wall like that, and I'm going to build in as much as I can remember about the flat. Now, the living room. Now, I can't match colours. If it's blue, it goes with blue. If it's green, it goes with green. And that is how this living room eventually ended up. Now, when I moved into this flat, it was completely empty. And when I say completely empty, it had no carpets down. The walls were all painted white. It was just a shell of a flat. So I was fortunate to get the keys to this place while I was living somewhere else. So I could sort of pop in the evening and at weekends and start painting the walls. And then I got a carpenter in who would come and pick up the flat keys from where I worked at the time and come to the flat, carpet each individual room at a time because I couldn't afford to get it all done at once. But the carpets went down individually once a week. And then once all the walls were painted and all the carpets were down, I could then move in. Now, there was a little bit of a mishap with him putting the carpet down in the living room because I do remember he picked the keys up one morning and then he came back in the afternoon with all his hand bandaged up. And I said, oh my goodness, what on earth has happened? And apparently he was taking the plastic cover off the carpet roll and cut straight through his finger, and he had to have stitches, and I think ultimately had to have surgery on it as well. And I kind of feel partly responsible for that because it was my floor that he was trying to carpet at the time. But anyway, we got there in the end, and like I said, the living room, it was just different shades of blue, and that made me wonder why I was just walking around depressed all the time, because if you imagine living and sitting and breathing in a blue room, it makes you feel blue. So anyway, lesson learnt there, we don't do that anymore. So we've got the living room and we've got the kitchen sorted out. Now, just outside the living room there was a little door on the left hand side, and that led into a small cupboard, which was a storage cupboard, or I made it into a storage cupboard. I had some shelves put in there, and the idea was I was just going to use that for sensible storage, but unfortunately it ended up being a bit of a junk room. So if there was any boxes or any rubbish or anything I just wanted out of sight, I just used to chuck it in there. So it never really got used for how I'd intended it to be. But I think a lot of places have got a room like that. I know as you know, the flat that I did last week, that also had a junk room, but at least this one had a light anyway. I'm just going to put these little boxes in here now just to represent the fact that it was a junk room, and that's what I used to do, just chuck boxes and things in. Right, so we'll do the bedroom next. Now, again, not able to match colours. I had a beige carpet and beige walls, just to keep it a bit different from the blue of the living room. And the wallpaper, I have to say, was extremely similar to the one that I'm using now. It was quite loud, quite shiny, and the curtains were exactly the same as the ones in the living room. But sort of a beige colour, I remember that as well. In fact, the curtains aren't exactly true to how it was. It's just it was the closest that I could get. And in traditional style of bedrooms in the 90s, we had 2 bedside cabinets with lamps on, matching lamps on. Now, I've got a bit confused here because I couldn't remember whether it was a circular rug or a square rug that was down here. But then I do remember it was a rug that was a bit too big for the space, and part of it went under the bed. So I assumed that it was going to be sort of a rectangular square one. So that was popped in there at the time. Wonderful. So that was the bedroom, and I'm struggling with light fittings. So I think just to cut corners, we'll just stick the usual source of lights in, and just pretend that we remember what they were. Now, bathroom. I had a green bathroom. Doesn't everybody have a green bathroom? Probably not, just me. Why was it green? I don't know. I think I must have just bought lots of different colours of paint and just sort of went round and sort of painted all the rooms and tried to figure out which colour would go best. And for some reason, I decided that the bathroom was going to be green. And yes, the carpet was very similar to that as well. But it was kind of nice. It was a sort of a warmish feel to it, which kind of worked when you were lying in the bath and just looking up at green walls and things. It was fine. Now, next to the bathroom, there was another room without a light, but it was a lot bigger. Now, a little story here. When I moved into this flat, like I said, it was completely empty. Apart from in this particular room where I'm putting a desk here, there was a pair of shoes. Now, I did hear from some of the other residents, and I don't know whether this was true or not, but they were saying that somebody actually died in that flat. And I immediately assumed that these shoes belonged to him, which I thought was a bit creepy, so they went straight out. Now, I had a computer in there. This was in the days before the internet. This is how long ago it was. And that computer that was in that room was like a sort of a database type computer that I used to log all my CDs and records. And I also started off a Eurovision database there as well. Don't ask, we'll discuss that another time, I think. So there's the flat. Pretty accurate, actually. Probably more accurate than the previous flat that I did before. So we have I put a few little accessories in now. So that was the hallway. This is my computer room, which wasn't really a computer, it was a databasey thing. My green bathroom. My tiny little kitchen. And my depressingly blue living room. So, and apart from, my bedroom. Oh no, another blue picture of my living room, and finally the bedroom. So, thanks for watching. We'll do it again next week.